Hi guys, today I would like to talk about contempt. Contempt is defined in Family Code section 290. When someone disobeys a court order, the court can issue a fine, attorney's fees, community service, and imprisonment. The court has to have inherent power to conduct its business, meaning when the court makes an order, the judge expects everyone to follow it, the parties. And the civil contempt is criminal in character, and criminal contempt is criminal in character, meaning it's defined in Penal Code section 166, and it is considered a crime. When someone violates a criminal code section, it's going to be criminal contempt, and when someone violates a court order, for example, in family court, it's going to be quasi-criminal contempt. And in family court contempt, whoever violates it can cure it by making the payment or basically do what the order says. In criminal contempt, it's not curable it cannot be escaped by compliance. So let's start with support orders. Failure to pay support is, for example, spouse support, child support, attorney's fees is part of family support, is defined in Code Section CCP 1218.5a, and each violation is a separate count. So the only time when and the court has discretion which support in nature will be the nature of support is going to be part of the contempt. So, for example, the court can decide that maybe attorney's fees, scratch all of that. Support orders are part of the contempt. So, failure to pay support, attorney's fees, spousal support, child support, are part of the contempt. And each month is a separate count defined in CCP, Code of Civil Procedure 1218.5a. The only part that it's not part of the contempt is non-payment of community property debt. California case of appeal Fontana, Fontana case, states that the court has no authority to issue contempt if someone is not paying, for example, division of assets, some buyout payments. So we determine support order. Custody orders are part of contempt. Domestic violence restraining orders, meaning if someone violates and harasses another person, a victim, against the order that the perpetrator had against him or her, then it's also punishable by contempt. Also, automatic restraining orders, meaning the orders protecting assets, violation of such orders are also punishable by contempt. Elements of contempt. First, it has to be a prior valid order. When is an order valid? First, if we have a final judgment, if we have clear and specific order when the court says someone has to pay X amount of dollars every month by that date, signed by the judge, or if there is no signature by the judge, it can be a detailed minute order. Second, knowledge of an order. So, for example, the person who has to follow who is punishable by contempt has to be present in court at the time when the order is made, or it's presumed that the person has knowledge if their lawyer was representing them. And if not present, then the person punishable by contempt was served with an order. Oral ruling are not considered prior orders, going back to topic 1 that I missed. Third, ability to comply. Ability to comply, for example, in a custody case where a parent has to pick up a child and the child isn't willing to go, then the parent who is picking up the child cannot be punishable by contempt, can be punished by contempt because they're not able to comply because out of their own power. That element, ability to comply, does not apply for support orders. For example, someone cannot say it has to be an element of contempt, ability to pay, because when the court issued the initial spousal support, child support attorney's fee order, the ability to pay was already assumed by the judge. So then the inability to pay becomes an affirmative defense, meaning the person who is being served with contempt now has to defend themselves and produce evidence and say why they cannot pay. And the court has even the authority to put the non-paying person, citee, in jail if they don't work and they don't seek job in order to not pay support. I had cases where I showed up in court and I saw in child custody orders some parents were in orange suits because they were in jail for not paying child support because they didn't want to pay, couldn't pay. So number 4, willful failure to comply, similar to the other number, the ability to comply. In support orders, it's not applicable because when someone is not paying, that's enough. So for support orders, if someone doesn't pay support, we have 3 elements that contempt, the person who files a contempt needs to prove. Number 1, valid order, knowledge of the person, the citee, and non-compliance. That's it. In order to file for contempt, whoever files it has to fill out FL 410, 411, or if it's domestic, 411 is for support orders, and if it's domestic or custody related, then FL 421. So that needs to be filed and served by anyone but you over age of 18 personally 21 court days before the hearing. Typically it's 16, but in contempt it's 21. It's defined in Family Code section 292B2, where it states 21 days. So in criminal, we have jury trial. In quasi-criminal contempt, where there are support orders, custody, domestic violence, there are no jury trial. The court is allowed to continue the hearing. The court can issue a bench warrant to secure the presence of the citee, proceed with trial even if the other person doesn't, if the citee doesn't show up, if there is a proof of service, personal service. The court must advise of the unrepresented party, citee, of his or her right to counsel, like it's usually done in criminal court. And finally, the punishment of contempt could be up to 5 days in prison or up to $1,000 for each count, on top of attorney's fees, which is also defined in CCP 1218A. So when court issues punishment, jail time, community service, the court must consider employment schedule. So that's it for contempt. I know it's a lot, and I hope I didn't miss anything. So it's a pretty serious, very rarely comes up in family court that someone has to file a contempt, but when it comes to it, it's pretty serious procedure. And I hope that was helpful. If you have any comments, ask me below. If you have questions, just comment down below. Like, subscribe. See you. Bye.